Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm joined by my co-host, Rusty Fender. Rusty, welcome.
Got a hot show and a hot week, Dave.
We do indeed, and you have met our guest before. You interviewed him on one of the weeks I was away.
You were off, yes.
Martin Hanahan is with us, and Martin
Hi,
heads a group called Forever Sammy. I know Martin through Facebook connections, and of course through the show that I saw that you had done. And it's important to recount some of his background that leads to this, because there's a very big rally coming up. And it is a rally that hopefully will call all of our awareness to the dangers, the problems of addiction, which is certainly a growing problem not only in our area but across the country. Martin has all too close connections to the subject of addiction, but to his credit has done something about it. So Martin, let's take it back. Let's go to the beginning, even though we're going over some ground you covered with Rusty before. You yourself were a person who was addicted, yes?
Sure, that's absolutely true. I suffer from substance abuse disorder. I'd like to think that, in my past, I had reached out for different things in my life to try to give me some kind of peace, some kind of security. And I found that relief in drugs and alcohol. And so for a short period of time, it seemed to work for me. Kind of gave me some security in my life and some relief to some of the fears that I might have had. And unfortunately, it kind of evolved and brought me to a point in my life where I ended up in places that I never intended on going. I did things that I never really thought that I would ever end up doing, and it put me in these places. And every time I would get there, I would say, how did this happen to me? I never intended on this. I never planned on getting here. And I've kind of found myself hopeless.
And it's easy to fall, even when you know the dangers down the road, isn't it?
Sure, I think, it's kind of like I talk to people and I tell them it's kind of like going into a restaurant on a menu. You look at the item on the left-hand side, and then if you look at the price that you'll pay for it on the right-hand side, if I go into some place for a cheesesteak hoagie and the price is $35, I say, well, geez, that's not logical. I'm not willing to pay that price. With addiction, it's not like that. It's like the prices that we pay on the right-hand side of the menu, they get blurred. And the menu, or the item on the menu on the left-hand side, becomes so paramount in our lives that we say we'll pay any price.
That looks so good that the price doesn't matter anymore.
Right, the price is irrelevant.
Goes to market price on the right, like it does,
Yeah.
Now, in your case, was it one of those evolutionary things like marijuana to something else?
Well, for me, it started as a normal teenager. I think, like a lot of my friends, that we would get our kegs and we would go back into the woods and we would drink underage and things like that. And they were able to put it down after they got to a certain age. They put it down and they proceeded on with their life. Where I continued to chase that.
So it was alcohol initially.
Alcohol initially was my relief factor, and then I continued to reach for more ways that I could reach that relief quicker. So it escalated into other street illicit drugs as well.
I think it's a big family thing too. I don't drink alcohol. I've had like maybe 2 beers in my life, and they probably before I was even old enough to have them. One of those deals, before you're even old enough. But my mother and father didn't drink alcohol. And like my father had, he had a shot of Canadian Club on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. I think for 30 years he had a fifth of Canadian Club. There's still a half a bottle left.
Bottle, yeah.
I think that when you don't come from a drinking situation, I think maybe it's a little easier to say no, because I'll tell you, when I was in college, it was everywhere. Not only alcohol, but also marijuana. It was everywhere. It was really tough. Not to just break down and say, you know what, I'm not going to have these people call me names. It's like, let me just try this one time. But I didn't. And not to be a bragger about the whole deal, but I think it's easier when you come from a situation where it's just not around at home, don't you?
Well, I think that there's a lot of tentacles that go into addiction. Of course, environment is one of the big tentacles. It's not surprising that those from lower or inner city environments, are surrounded by it and therefore maybe reach to it a lot easier. But it's become an epidemic where it doesn't matter. I have a saying, it doesn't matter Yale to jail, Park Ave to the park bench. Anybody in between is susceptible to it. And so our message isn't so much because the disheartening and the hopeless message that we read every day in our obituaries is common. I mean, just as recently as yesterday, a close friend of mine, Bobby, succumbed to the disease of addiction through an accidental overdose. And so it's continuing to happen. The message that we're trying to put out there at the Addiction Awareness Rally is the message of hope, that people can recover from this, provided that they're willing to do some key things. And some of those key things are to become an actively participate in recreating them.
Now, in your case, it got bad enough where you were incarcerated?
That's correct. I was incarcerated on multiple different occasions. Again, I would find myself in there and I would say, what happened? How did I get here? I always wanted to be a nice guy. I wanted my children to be proud of me. I wanted my mother to be proud of me. And I would find myself in these situations where obviously they weren't. Mm-hmm. And society would judge me based on my actions and not by my motives. And there's an age-old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions,
yeah.
and I was following that.
Yeah.
And I often speak about, I was a young kid, I was maybe about 8 or 9 years old, and there was this guy, and he was homeless, and I was going with my friends to kind of tease him and pick him and maybe get a good chase out of him. And what ended up happening is he ended up talking to us. And I remember being mesmerized by his story. And I realized that everybody had a story. And I went home to my mother and I told her all of these things. I said, well, he lives in a car, and how did he get there? And my mother just very patiently listened to me, and on our way to church that afternoon, or later that week perhaps, she said, what car was it? And I showed her the car because we drove by it. It was on the corner of Oak Street and Brick Avenue in North Scranton. And it used to be Lou Costanzo's garage. And he was letting a guy sleep in one of the abandoned cars. And she gave me a paper bag with a couple sandwiches in it and a couple cans of soda. And she said, here, leave this for him. And I left it for him. And I don't know whether he ate the sandwiches and drank the soda to this day, but I remember I felt good as a result of doing that.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, I got misplaced. I got lost in worrying about, was I going to get enough? Was I good enough? All of these insecurities that I was kind of alluding to earlier. And so I reached for outside things. And my actions didn't coincide with what I wanted to be. And so I got separated. I'm really big on the spirit. We always talk about the spirit of Sammy. Because when Samantha was sober, she knew that spirit, and she was
now let's, for those that because we're getting ahead of ourselves here, you had a daughter named Sammy, or
correct.
Samantha, and Samantha, like yourself, fell into the trap of addiction.
Correct.
Unfortunately, that story had a very tragic ending.
Yes.
Share it with us, please.
Sure. Samantha was. You plant potatoes, you don't get corn. Samantha also suffered from the disease of addiction, and early on in her life, of course, she was experimenting with alcohol and things like that. And then my wife we would try to dissuade her from continuing along that path with consequences. You're grounded. Give me your cell phone, things like that. And you hope that that's enough of a deterrent to stop them. Unfortunately, in her case, it wasn't. And so that gives us some flags. Like there's warning signs and symptoms to this. When the consequence isn't enough to get them to change their behavior, my wife recognized that quickly, and she had her placed in a treatment facility, which is a local treatment facility. At first, it didn't really quite take, or she wasn't willing to do what she needed to do. So we had returned her after a relapse. After the second time, however, she kind of got the message, and she became willing to do some things, and she started to achieve some things, with recovery being the primary principal foundation of being
things
able to
were
do
looking
that.
up.
Yeah, she was a personal banker for a Fortune 500 company, a Wells Fargo bank, at the age of 20 years old, making phenomenal money. But her primary mission that she used to tell me, because at that time I was still in my active addiction, her primary mission at that time, she said, was to help others. She said simply help others. As a matter of fact, while she was sober and I was incarcerated one of those times, I got a card on Father's Day, and that card simply said, I know it sucks right now, Dad, but help somebody while you're there. And so that will give you a kind of a glimpse of what her passion was when she was sober. Unfortunately, the disease of addiction is so cunning, so baffling, that it will sneak in through any avenue, and the selfishness will return. And as soon as the selfishness returns and we rest on our laurels, what usually happens is the relapse, the physical relapse, is imminent. It's not too far off, and that's why we need a support group of people like us to recognize those symptoms in us.
How did she originally break the news to you that she was addicted? Is it one of those father and daughter deals, or?
Well, for me, it was once she had gone to treatment. Obviously, she was diagnosed by a medical team. Because the truth is that there's.
Did you have a premonition at that time that possibly she was?
Yeah, well, I kind of saw the symptoms and the warning signs myself, but again, a lot of times based on fear, parents get so overprotective. It's important for me to step back as a parent, even being in recovery myself, to step back as a parent and let the professionals deal with it.
I think a lot of folks don't want to actually know at that point either. You want to try and kid yourself that this can't be happening to me.
It's denial, sure. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I actually spoke to a mother. We had gone and done an intervention, and the father was very adamant about his child definitely needing treatment. The mother, on the other hand, had a very strong case of denial, which is the disease aspect in a family member. And she actually said to me, my daughter isn't as bad. She doesn't do as much heroin as the girl down the street. And when I brought that to her awareness, and I said, do you realize?
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, do you realize that you just said to me that your daughter does not push as much poison into her veins as the girl down the street? I saw her eyes get dim, and she started to sob because she realized, the fatality. We don't want to see the fatality in front of us.
That's right.
Sometimes we
But in the case of Samantha, it did turn into a fatality.
That's
correct. An overdose?
It was an overdose. Samantha was struggling at the end, and I was obviously sober at that point in time, and we had sent her to multiple treatment facilities throughout the area, some of them out of the area. It had gone to any and all extremes, even so to have her arrested for paraphernalia possession charges. And excuse me, when asked was there a bail, we asked that there be no bail. And one of the reasons was it was a suggestion to us to at least keep her safe. And a lot of people had said to me, at least she's safe and you'll sleep at night. And that for me was only a half truth, having been incarcerated and knowing the loneliness and the despair and the hopelessness of being incarcerated. Obviously I knew she was safe, but I didn't sleep real well at night. On Friday, April 10th, or April 8th of 2016, she was released back into our custody, and we had high hopes for her. We thought, on April 11th, she was to report for random urinalysis through Lackawanna County judicial system, follow up with aftercare at a treatment facility for outpatient, actively participate in a 12-step program of recovery. And so our hopes were there that perhaps sometimes with the external motivations, maybe the recovery can grasp her again and she can see the different qualities of her life, using and not using. Because sometimes, again, that consequence, that price tag on the right-hand side of the menu gets blurred. Unfortunately, on April 10th, less than 24 hours before she was supposed to report for her first time, I had gotten a message through text message that Samantha was not responding to her phone calls, and a friend said that she was at a local motel room. And upon getting to that local motel room, entering the room, I had found her deceased from an accidental heroin overdose.
Oh my, what a tragedy. And
parents' nightmare, huh, David?
Absolutely, but I still am just in awe of how you've taken this horrible negative thing throughout the family and are constantly trying to turn it into a positive thing for other people. Hence, we're coming up with the Addiction Awareness Rally on July the 15th. What happens there? Where is it? What's the timing on it? Give us a little rundown on how that works.
Well, the Addiction Awareness Rally was started, believe it or not, 8 weeks after her passing. We had the first rally. Obviously, she passed on April 10th of 2016. And we had placed it in a newspaper as an accidental drug overdose because knowing her strong belief in recovery when she was sober. We knew she would want the truth to be told. And my wife, Stacy, was very adamant about
But it also
placing that in the
disposes
paper.
of the constant questions for years
Correct.
after that. You
Yeah,
put it to
we-
rest. Well, you address the situation and it's done.
Yeah.
Well,
and-
and I do see more and more of that happening
Absolutely.
now. Is that that's a healthy thing then for the families to admit what has happened?
I believe it is. I believe it helps them break through the denial and recognize nobody is ashamed. You see in a newspaper often after a long, courageous battle with cancer, it is recognized as a disease. And I know that a lot of people, there is a huge controversy over some, whether it be choice or disease. And I have a belief that it is both. That initially it is a disease that starts by choice. And the way that I believe that is if I am allergic to peanuts, I have a choice whether or not to eat the peanut.
Sure.
But if I do make that bad decision to eat the peanut, then I have no choice over the symptoms and the reaction that my allergy to peanuts has. I can't just say, I'm not going to let my throat swell.
I just think that's a great thing to put in the paper. It eliminates hearsay. When people make it generic and say someone dies at age 22, people usually just
There's
don't
questions.
die at
Everybody,
22.
everybody's asking questions,
exactly.
and then the assumptions may become.
That's exactly right.
may
Totally
become worse.
erroneous. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure, but so after that, we met with some local officials who had asked us why, and so we had told them that. And we also know from being in recovery, I've gone to a lot of premature funerals, unfortunately, and it's always the same. When you put in there, died unexpectedly, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss. And then we go into the back room and then we go, I'll bet you it was drugs. And so our slogan, which is on the back of these shirts that I'm wearing, is stop the whispers. Just because we're not talking about these lights in this room right now doesn't mean these lights don't exist. It's a reality. It doesn't have to be a statistical reality, however. We do recover if we're willing to do what we need to do. And that was the message that we wanted to portray, that addiction is here. We need to bring some awareness to it. And so we launched the Forever Sammy Foundation at the first rally. Since then, it's grown in numbers. Some of the local officials said to me, don't be upset if only 50 people come. A lot of people don't want to talk about this. You might not want to do it on a Sunday because there's nothing going on downtown on a Sunday. And they said, so what do you think? I said, well, we're going to do it on a Sunday. And they said, why? That contradicts everything I just said to you. I said, well, you see obstacles and we see opportunities. We're going to do it because nobody wants to talk about this, and we're going to do it on a Sunday because there's nothing else going on downtown on a Sunday. So we've done that. Our first one, there was over 1,800 people last year.
Over 1,800?
1,800 people came through. Last year, they said that over, WNEP, I believe it was, said that over 16,000 had been recorded coming in and coming through the day. And so it's been very successful. We decided that we wanted to invite all of the treatment facilities. We initially started with a lot of the treatment facilities locally to come and present the different resources they have
Did
available.
most send a representative?
Yeah, this year I believe we have a couple dozen from 3 different states
that's
coming now.
great.
We are now the
Success, isn't it?
Yeah.
we are now the
And it also reminds people there are resources out there that many people don't know about.
That's
That's
true.
right.
It's absolutely correct. There's a lot of small satellite offices because a lot of people that have addiction, again, they have this thing with going to larger conglomerates and speaking in front of large people. There's a lot of satellite offices that we invite that have one-on-one counseling. They have small offices, and a lot of people feel more comfortable going to somebody one-on-one because of the confidentiality aspect of the disease, the stigma of the disease. This year, we started with a free kids zone. And the reason for that being the case is at the Scrantacular prior to our first one, I had preserved a young child who was going into a bouncy house, and he had asked his mother if he could go in, and she said, I'm not going to pay $2 for you to go bounce on an air mattress for 3 minutes. And it dawned on me, why should they have to? So at our event, because it is my daughter's birthday, is July 16th, so this is her birthday party we plan every year. And so we decided we're going to do a free kids zone. This year we have free bouncy houses, face painting, live pony rides, fishing derby games, all different carnival-style games for kids.
This is all Courthouse Square?
It's all at the Lackawanna County Courthouse
Lackawanna
Square.
County Courthouse Square, right in Scranton. You don't have to be a Lackawanna County resident or a Scranton resident to come.
That's
if
right.
you're watching this, be it on ECTV or through our YouTube channel, come on, enjoy it. July the 15th, and the hours will be what?
The hours are 3 to 7 p.m.
Okay, nice time zone for it.
Yeah.
Sure, and hopefully the weather will hold out for you as well.
Yeah, we're hopeful. The past 2 years it's been very nice. This year it looks like it's going to be somewhere in the mid 70s, so it looks like it'll be comfortable. So we're hopeful.
I as a non-parent, I'm overwhelmed. You're a parent. You're obviously a parent at the constant love, the endless love for your children and the ones who have been successful, and of course the ones who have not made it so far in life. But it's truly amazing. I guess it's really a parental thing that you'll never forget, and we really shouldn't ever forget.
No,
correct?
no,
Right?
no. And it's the old story. If you make a difference in one person's life, and you may not even know you made the difference.
Right.
That may be a story
right.
that's never told.
That's right.
And that can be extremely impressive, although I'm sure you've had some success stories as well.
Well, we do work with a lot of younger people that are in, entering into recovery, and try to help navigate them into something to give them some support. The funny thing is, I was thinking about Mother Teresa is a big part of who I love her mission. I love the way her lifestyle, everything about her. And they had asked her one time, what is the saddest thing that you've ever seen in all of the different human ailments that you've seen? And she said, the saddest thing that I've ever seen was the loneliness of an alcoholic. And for a woman who had seen all that human ailment to make that statement. And when I had heard that, I thought, I get it, I understand. And so we want to, and that's why we want to include everybody. We include all these volunteers. It doesn't matter if they are sober for 30 days or 30 years. We believe that, include them. Take away a part of that loneliness. Make them feel connected again, because scientifically speaking, they say that the two biggest things for the homeless community and for the drug and alcohol substance abuse disorder people is a lack of connection and a lack of support. So if we can connect them to that support, then that's the solution. And so we've been doing that. It's been successful. It's been encouraging to see young people get up and get their 1-year coin, and to just believe that you may have played a small part in that.
Yeah, that they've been drug free for a year, and they get the recognition. Are we making any inroads from the law enforcement point of view with this problem?
Well, I think that we are. I think that with Chief Graziano, locally anyway, Chief Graziano with his pre-arrest program that he's implementing, and Mark Powell with investigating into some of the pre-arrest programs that he's trying to implement as well, some of the evolution. See, addiction has evolved. It's no longer kids going back to a woods with a keg and maybe smoking a joint, falling down, getting muddy, and getting an under arrest citation, where they have to do a couple hours of community service. See, addiction has evolved to the point where the things that these kids are experimenting with is being instantly fatal. So you have kids who may not even suffer from the disease of addiction, who are passing as a result of their experimentation. Those same kids that I grew up with and drank back at the woods with, some of them have, like I said, put the drink down and evolved in their lives, their careers, and they're lawyers, and some of them
Look
are
at the
in
bath salts fiasco. That came out of nowhere. Who would think that the most inane substance in your house to use in the bathroom, to take a bubble bath or whatever, bath salts, would be used if anything is
constantly changing.
Exactly.
And these kinds of things will be brought up at the rally.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
The information will be available to people there.
Sure. We'll also have inexpensive carnival-style foods there. It's not going to be your typical courthouse $5 hot dog venue. We're really, we're grassroots. We believe that in getting the people out there, but there'll also be live entertainment. There'll be speakers from family members, survivors, along with some of those local officials to talk about some of the new programs and initiatives and resources that are available. that a lot of the community doesn't know about because they don't want to ask about it publicly.
You should
And
thank your
so-
lucky stars it wasn't this past weekend.
Oh,
When you turned out so.
I'll tell you what.
I think
when
maybe you dodged the bullet on
when
this
you were
one.
mentioning hot, I was thinking, well, we wear hot pink, but I don't know if it's this hot. But
Well, I think that Sammy would be and is very proud of you and these efforts. And again, I know you pretty much through Facebook. And when I see the response to your posts on Facebook, you've got a lot of support out there, and it seems to be ever growing. So count yourself as a regular here
Well-
pre-rally, because we're gonna see what we can do to help out by getting the message
Absolutely.
out there to everybody.
I could not thank you guys enough. We are forever grateful for
Good luck,
your
Mark, and
hospitality.
continued Good luck.
Because
in your quest.
it really is. We believe it's the most important health issue that's going on to date right
I tend
now.
to agree with you.
Oh, no doubt. I agree too. Absolutely.
So if we could help keep some other kids off of T-shirts and help the family members and direct them to the resources that they need in order for their child to, recreate their life and they're standing back into society, then it's a home run.
That's great.
Mike.
Addiction Awareness Rally, it's July the 15th. 3 o'clock begins, yes.
It begins at
and
3 p.m.
Courthouse Square in Scranton. Again, come out. You got nothing to lose. You got a lot to gain by learning some things.
And thanks to Mark McGlory's record keeping today too. This is a very special anniversary
This
program.
is the 10th anniversary of Electric City Television.
Awesome.
And so you're on a milestone program this time around.
And David is dressed in his classic summer wear. I haven't seen this many shirts at Key West, Dave, than you have here. But this is a wonderful thing to usher in this.
I have 2 more.
Don't threaten us, David. Please don't threaten us.
Martin, good luck with the rally.
Good luck,
Rusty,
Mark.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome, David.
Mark, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mark.
Expect we're going to be here 10 years from now doing the same show, although Lord knows if this host will be here to do it. Until we see you next week, I'm David DeCosmo, Free CTV Live. Here's hoping all your news is good.